Olaf, just one or two last questions from me, then we can open it up to the floor. But you mentioned there about, in your presentation, about the putting the focus on the customer, and as you said, a lot of organizations have, as a mantra, we're customer-centric, but it's difficult to actually live and breathe it. You mentioned that point. So if I can just bring you back to that, how realistic, how practically, I mean, all of the competitors, as you said in your sector, say, customer experience or customer insight, whatever it is, that's how we differentiate. But how do you actually live and breathe that to make sure you are customer-centric?
Well, so the first thing I said was to spend time there, and I think that helps. And then the second thing, which I find very difficult at times, is you have to sometimes take difficult decisions between time to market and customer experience. So sometimes, we had a recent example where we introduced a new phone in the market, and our technical people told us, well, this is maybe not really going to be good. Right. And you have to make this trade-off. The people are trained. The advertising is already planned. It's hard sometimes. It's really hard to make those hard cuts. And I think you need to be at times courageous and say, okay, no, we don't do this, and it might have a negative financial impact in the short term. Mm-hmm. And that I find difficult, is to make those trade-offs. Yeah. The way I've dealt with it is I've got a person in my team. I have a person, Jackie O'Leary, who is representing those issues. So she represents those issues in the board, and she has a veto. So she is allowed to say, guys, you cannot do this. This will have too big an impact. And by bringing customer experience into the board, by someone who is not in a functional position, but in a real operational role, so she is in an operational role, I think you can work through those issues. Yeah, you can work through those issues.
Yeah. And final question for me, you mentioned that you came over to this country and you're challenging the assumption of the network here. You're putting new benchmarks in, saying that it just isn't acceptable. You went in and you sort of saw this scorecard of red, amber and green, and you challenged the assumptions there. So challenging the assumptions as what is acceptable is one of those traits of great organizations and great people. So how do you make sure that your culture is constantly doing that and you are challenging the assumptions to make sure you're making big improvements?
It's a good question. I don't know actually.
I haven't got an answer for it. That's why I'm asking.
Do I challenge? Well, I mean, first of all, by establishing this value around being bold, we try to allow to give people permission to think out of the box, and we allow people to come forward with sometimes, some crazy ideas and. And to challenge the status quo. We try to do that. We try to bring that in through the values that we have implemented. And the advantage we had, which is sometimes difficult, when you are in an infrastructure business, I thought it was actually quite logical to start challenging the status quo, because this country has to work on its infrastructure. I mean, I was amazed. Sometimes I'm sitting in a train, and I drive to the north, and you get this excuse, we're going to be late because there are leaves on the trains. I could not believe it when I heard it the first time. Now I get used to it now. So, and
very big leaves.
Or all this the one that I even taped, because I thought this one I think is the most interesting one, was the water infrastructure. I mean, you must remember this one, where was the person, probably for very good reason, who was representing the water infrastructure in the UK, or I don't know, one of the big organizations. And he said, it has to rain from now until the last day of the year, 24/7, and then maybe we have enough water to serve the society. I thought, I mean, people have to stand up and say, my God, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Or take Heathrow. I mean, when you fly, Heathrow, every time you go to Heathrow, the first thing that goes through my mind, oh my God, I'm going to be late to this meeting. This country has to do something about these problems.
It's funny because we were in drought all the way up until the end of September, and we had a Vietnamese monsoon every day.
It was raining like crazy, and we were not allowed to water to clean our cars. And I think that this is something interesting about this society, that you accept that infrastructure. We need to do something about that.
Yeah. Well, we need things to complain and moan about, right? I mean,
No, you need to. It's not so difficult to do it. I mean, it takes a few years. But at least what I can say is that on the digital infrastructure side, I'll make sure that with my company, this country will get an infrastructure that we are proud of. That's what I want to have here. And when I started here, the infrastructure in my space was running behind the US, Korea, Sweden, many countries. Now the infrastructure that is already here in London and in 10 other cities is an infrastructure that is better and bigger than in any other city in Europe. And afterwards, I want to try to get an infrastructure that is beating some of these countries that are a bit the poster childs in terms of digital infrastructure. The poster child in the world today is Korea. So Korea, I don't know if you know, they have the advantage that it's a small infrastructure, a small country, and secondly that everyone lives in apartments. So it's easier to build a digital infrastructure for everyone. But I think we can, my company can certainly make a big contribution to the digital infrastructure, big contribution.